This week's parsha is Parshas Chukas. Parshas Chukas begins by discussing the laws of Parah Aduma, the red heifer. The red heifer is one of the ingredients in the concoction that is sprinkled on a person who comes in contact with the dead body and therefore becomes impure. The means of his purification are by sprinkling on the third and the seventh day thereafter, and that will make him no longer spiritually contaminated. He's purified himself. The process of creating that mixture, though, creates a paradox. And many of the commentators talk about this, and the Gemara talks about it, that despite the concoction itself having purifying effect on those who are sprinkled with it, the people who are involved in the preparation of that concoction, or that's to say the majority of them, become tameh by being involved in that process. The person who brings it, the person who mixed it, even though these people were previously tahar and they were pure, and they are involved in the process of creating something which makes other people pure, they themselves become impure by involving themselves in that process of creating that concoction. So despite the fact that they're in the assembly line of a purifying agent, they themselves become impure. And this is one of the paradox, or one of the paradoxes that is the reason why Parah Aduma, the red heifer, the laws of becoming pure through the red heifer are considered without a reason, meaning without a reason that we can understand. These are what's called a chayk. There are statutes, meaning this is the rule, and we don't really understand why or what are the parameters or why the parameters are this way. This is a chayk, it's a statute. Hashem said this is the way it is and this is what you should do. I'm sorry you don't understand, but that's just what Hashem said, and that's what we're going to do. Anyway, so the Chizkunim gives the following hint as to understand how that works. How could a purifying agent make those who are involved in its preparation, preparing that concoction, how can they become impure by engaging in that process and creating that concoction? So he says that, and it's really a great principle for Judaism as a whole, is that it's not a one-size-fits-all. He brings an example, it's more of a parallel, that we see that heat, fire, when it comes in contact with different things, has totally different outcomes. If heat is applied to food, the food becomes hardened, right? If a person boils an egg, the egg before it was boiled was liquid, and now that you've boiled it, it becomes solid. Now, but the opposite effect it has on a metallic substance. If you take a block of gold, stick it into the kiln under high heat, the gold will melt. So when it comes in contact with food, the heat will dry out the food and then make it hard. But when it comes to a metal, all of a sudden it takes the solid and makes it liquid. So how do you understand that? Well, the answer is that the question is, what is it coming in contact with? Obviously, you're coming in contact with a egg, and the heat is dehydrating the egg. It's going to make the egg hard. If it's coming in contact with metal, and I'm not a scientist, but I'm assuming the way it works is that when it heats up, the molecules start moving, and then it becomes more of a pliable substance and becomes liquid. It's a different story. And the lesson, though, is that everything has its time and place. And for certain people, this is not the right answer for them. Just because for this person, the way he achieved his personal perfection in some way was by utilizing this type of method or going to the extremes in this type of way, that's not the answer for someone else necessarily. And that's a lesson of Parah Aduma, especially when it comes to spiritual purity and impurity. What is pure for one could be impure for another. What is impure for one could be pure for another. We can't judge. Question on this week's parsha. So, like we said, Parah Aduma, the red heifer, is a statute. It's a gzeira. Hashem decreed it. and we have no permission to question it because we don't understand it. I mean, that's the way it was meant to be. And this is considered a very unique mitzvah because of that. And the question is, aren't there so many mitzvahs, or at least parts of mitzvahs out there, that we have so many questions about, that in general we don't understand the mitzvah? Why is para aduma, the red heifer, the laws of purifying someone who's become spiritually contaminated, why is that considered the chayk, the statute, the decree for which we cannot ask any questions? There are many difficult mitzvahs, and there are many mitzvahs that we have a lot of trouble understanding. And para aduma is not necessarily the hardest one to understand, especially considering the fact that many of the commentators go to great lengths to understand that we understand this part and that part and this part. There are other mitzvahs that are equally difficult to understand, but for some reason, para aduma is considered the gzeira, the decree, the statute, the chayk. What's so special about para aduma? Have a great Shabbos.